This mini lesson is called Revelation 12 and the Stars of Heaven. I'm going to ask the question, did Satan take 1/3 of the angels from heaven on his side? Now, this is a deep topic that many people talk about. And I know that for the fact that most people believe that there's certain scriptures that say that Satan took 1/3 of the angels from heaven. Now, there's something about stars, and in the scriptures, the word star or stars can be referencing various things, but reading in context is the key. We'll have the natural stars in the night sky that you do see, also known as planets. Also, stars can represent the holy angels, the Messiah or even a prince, the 12 tribes of Israel, along with anyone that honors the Father and the Son. They become Israel unto Judah through the Messiah. And worship of any kind using the stars as holy times or as gods is condemned. And of course, the star is also representative of a double or the double. So let's get into this. Let's look at the natural stars. Psalms 147. He telleth the number of the stars. He calleth them all by their names. We know that in the world, we know that there's millions on top of millions and millions of stars, if not billions. You cannot count them. Psalms 8. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? So again, just the splendor of the stars has the prophet here, David, looking into this and understanding these are so magnificent. And why do you pay such attention to human beings? Psalms 148 says, praise ye him, sun and moon, praise him, all ye stars of light. And 1 Corinthians finishes off here, verse 41. There was one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. For one star differeth from another star in glory. So again, we know that stars can represent the literal stars in heaven. This word stars in the scripture. However, it's also an abomination if you do worship the sun, moon, or stars. Let's take a little bit of a look. Deuteronomy 4:19. Unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which Jahdael hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. So we're commanded here not to worship these stars at all. That means don't use them for any holy times or anything in particular, like the horoscope and the astrology, utilizing the zodiac sign. All of these things are very evil, and they're even connected to the pagan observation of birthdays. In Deuteronomy 17, it says, if there be found among you within any of thy gates, which Jahdael giveth thee, man or woman, that hath wrought wickedness in the sight of Jahdael, in transgressing his covenant, and hath gone and served other Elohim or other gods, and worshipped them, either the sun or moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded. Now this is a very powerful verse, because the Most High never commanded anyone to use the sun, moon, or stars as worship objects, or to set any holy dates. We do know that they're for the natural signs and seasons, and also for prophetical signs, but that's about it. Verse 4, and it be told thee, and thou hast heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain that such abomination is wrought in Israel. Then shalt thou bring forth that man or that woman which have committed that wicked thing unto thy gates, even that man or that woman, and shalt stone them with stones till they die. So again, we see that the Most High is very serious about honoring or worshiping the stars of heaven. Now, a lot of these stars are also symbolic in the world for some things good and for mostly many things that are evil. Now, even though it does say to stone people if they worship the sun, moon, and stars, or even if for Sabbath breaking, that's not something that is in play by any human now, because all of us have sin. So these things are just established to let us know that worshiping these things or even desecrating the Sabbath will bring eternal death and destruction in the lake of fire. But when you look at these sun, moon, and stars, they're also attached to the solar Gregorian and lunar calendars. And both of these calendars are Baalim calendars. They're marks of the beast, set forth by the Roman Catholic Church, putting forth false time frames and counterfeit worship days, just like it says in Daniel that one would come to think to change times and laws. But not only the Gregorian calendar, but also the so-called lunisolar calendar that many Israelites and many Christian groups use to honor the Most High's festivals. These are astronomical, pagan, and devilish. 2 Kings 17 verse 16 reads, "And they, the Israelites, left all the commandments of Jah their Elohim, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal." So indeed, these things are very evil. And when you look at today's calendars, especially the Gregorian one and the lunisolar calendar, they're all governed by the astronomical equinoxes and solstices. And what I'm saying is that these spring equinoxes and the autumn equinox, the summer solstice and the winter solstice are all satanic, heathenistic time frames. They're the false beginning of seasons. And truly, they are the middle of the seasons. And all again, this is based upon astronomical worship, utilizing the celestial sphere, and in particular, the North Star, a star named Polaris. And this deals with Satan, but that's for another lesson. However, when we look into scriptures, we can see the connection of pagan festivals also to the worshiping of the starry host. Jeremiah 10 reads, "Hear the word which Jah speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Jah, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cuts a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and gold, they fasten it with nails, and with hammers, that it move not." Now we know this is easily symbolic of what you call the Christmas tree. And when a lot of people look at the Christmas tree and they see all the stars on it and, the tinsel everywhere, and even those kind of glowing balls that they have, it's all representative of the heavens and the sun, moon, and stars. They even put a star at the top of the tree for most times. But not only that, you'll also see others, when they decorate their tree that worships the heavens, they'll also put a figure of an angel at the top. And yes, stars can also be symbolic of angels, both good and evil. When we look at the symbol of these stars, we can see that the main religions of the world utilize these things as a standard or as an insignia of Satan. Let's take a read. Acts 7. "Then Jah turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. O ye house of Israel, have you offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? Yea, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which you made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon." So again, you can see that there's a star of Remphan. Now, for some people, even for us, we utilize a 7-pointed star as symbolic of our ministry. But to worship it and honor it and to think it is something holy, no. Amos 5 reads, verse 26, "But you have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch and Kayun, your images, the star of your God, which you have made to yourselves." So indeed, you should know by now that these stars and the things that they represent are nothing holy at all. They represent the false religions and doctrines of the devil. However, though, a star can also be symbolic of our Messiah, our Savior, who died for our sins. Numbers 24:17. "I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth." We know that this Star of Jacob is definitely the Messiah. You see those other stars, like the Star of David, the six-pointed stars, those are of Satan. Revelation 22:16, it reads, I, Jehoshua, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. So as you can see on your screen as well, we utilize the seven-pointed star as symbolic of our ministry, as symbolic of what we stand for. But to bow down, to worship these things, no, not so. These are banners that we display because of the truth. Now, I know that may kind of rankle some people's minds, but nonetheless, we feel that the number 7 is something that should be put forth in the world more, instead of utilizing all these other pagan and heathenistic stars that have different numerical values. Now, when you get into things too, you'll start to see that Christianity on a mainstream, they love to worship astronomically. And they even teach that the wise men that are in the Messiah who saw a star, that they're called magi, which is short for magicians, and that they were astronomers or astrologers, of which they weren't, and they put forth a false birth. They even try to make it look like that it's 3 different races that came to visit the Messiah. But there's a whole lot of wrongness in this astronomical gospel and the birth of the Messiah. But we won't talk about that now. But however, let's look at a few things. The wise men of the East who studied the scriptures, as I said, and not the heavens, were visited by an angel of the Most High. That was the star. And angels can be called stars. This is the star that they saw while living in the East. They didn't see like a literal star in the eastern sky that is false. No, not at all. That's put forth by astronomy, and that lie has to stop today. When we look at these scriptures, we can see that stars can be symbolic of angels. Job 38. When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of Elohim shouted for joy. Revelation 9:1. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. So when you read in Revelation, for the most part, you'll see even the 7 stars of Revelation are symbolic of angels. And that's something that is very important to know. So when we go back and we want to kind of look at this story of the wise men, we'll see many things. We'll see that the wise men of the East and the star that they saw was not a literal star, but an angel. Matthew 2:1. Now when Joshua was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. Not magi, but wise men. They were sophos, had scriptural wisdom, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. Now what we have to do is ask ourselves this question. If they were observing the heavens and looking for a star in the east, would that star, if they saw it, was it shining brighter? Was it a message? Was it writing a message to say, go to Jerusalem and find the Messiah? No. This star that they saw in the east was an angel, everyone. It was an angel that they saw in the east, and the angel told the wise men to go to Jerusalem so that they can worship the Messiah. That makes way more sense than just looking in the sky and following a star, even though a star can't, stand over one house. But let's continue. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where the Messiah was born. Now one thing is, when you look at verse 3 here, it says that he was troubled and all Jerusalem with him. Believe you me, these Israelites, so to speak, all Jerusalem, Hebrews, Jews, Israelites, they weren't astronomers or astrologers. So if there was some pagan magi that would come and say, hey, we're here to worship the Messiah, that wouldn't even trouble them because they saw some star in the sky. They know better than that they don't worship these things. But if they now said an angel visited them, then easily you can see how Herod and the other Israelites who are wicked would be troubled. Let's take a look at these verses clearly. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently at what time the star, the angel, appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when you have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed. Now look here, and lo, the star, the angel which they saw in the east, it went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. Now that would be very silly to think that, a star way up in the sky, and if you take a look up in the night sky, you might think that one star is over your head, but it can only be over many people's head or their houses. And this is the thing. When they say that the star was shining, and they try to make it look like in the astronomical gospel that it was shining right on top of the place where Mary and Joseph and the Messiah were. But clearly it says that the star, they saw the star again, and it came, and it was standing over where the young child was. So the angel, more likely Gabriel, came and guided them to the house where the Messiah was. They didn't look up in the sky. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy, because the angel had comforted them. You see, when you look at the birth of John the Baptist and Joshua the Messiah, it's surrounded with angelic manifestations. Zechariah, John's father, saw Gabriel the angel and was given a message. Miriam spoke to Gabriel the angel. The wise men, as I'm showing here, were led by an angel, not a star in the sky. An angel also warned them in a dream. Angels sang to the shepherds that were out there with their flock when the Messiah was born. And even Joseph, the Messiah's stepfather, was warned in a dream by an angel 2 times. So what I'm saying is here, this astronomical gospel of Magi and looking up in the sky for stars is false. But let's get to a question. Did Satan take 1/3 of the angels from heaven on his side? And again, this is a very popular doctrine. And usually it's geared around this verse here. Revelation 12 verse 4. It says, His tail drew the 1/3 part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to earth. So right from here, people say that, hey, look at it. It's pretty clear. The stars of heaven, the angels of heaven, and cast them to earth. And we're going to read a little bit about this just to put it into context to let you know that this is not true about angels. A lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between sometimes angels and human beings when it comes to symbolism in the scriptures. And there's quite a lot of misinformation. Even the sons of God, or Elohim, or Jah, or Yah, found in Genesis 6, people teach that it's angels that came and had sex with women. But that wasn't angels, that was men, righteous men, or supposedly men who were supposed to be righteous from the holy lineage of Seth. But they diverted. But as you know, many people teach that, Genesis 6 is referring to angels, just like how they feel that the Revelation I just read is referring to angels. However, that's not true. The stars of heaven represent Zion, Israel, the 12 tribes. And we're going to take a look at this in Revelation chapter 12 itself and just give it a clean read. And that's all we have to do in this instance here. First of all, let's go to Genesis chapter 26 before we read Revelation 12 and see something very clearly, that the Israelites are represented as stars. And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou swearest by thine own self, and saidst unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I will give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. That's Exodus chapter 32. Deuteronomy 1. Jah, your Elohim, hath multiplied you, and behold, you are this day as the stars of heaven for multitude. Hopefully you can see this is clear, even though it's symbolic, but this is the symbolism of the prophecy of Revelation 12. Deuteronomy 10. Thy fathers went down into Egypt with 70 persons, And now Jah thy Elohim hath made thee as the stars of heaven for multitude. Nehemiah 9 reads, Their children also multiplied thou as the stars of heaven, and broughtest them into the land concerning which thou hast promised to their fathers, that they should go to possess it. 1 Chronicles 27. But David took not the number of them from 20 years old and under, because Jah had said he would increase Israel like to the stars of the heavens. So my point here is to let you know that when we get to Revelation 12, you'll see clearly that it's not referring to angels at all, but it's referring to the Israelites. I mean, when we take a first look at Revelation, the verse of Revelation 12, it's very clear to see. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And these 12 stars represent Zion and Israel. Again, you can see on her head the 12 stars clothed with the sun and moon. But take a look here at Genesis 37, which helps us confirm also. And he dreamed yet another dream, and this is Joseph. And he told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. So these 11 stars represent Joseph's 11 brothers, and he would be the 12 stars. But again, you can see that it represents the 12 tribes of Israel. So let's get right into it. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, which is the Messiah, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now we know that this here represents the devil. But notice again, there's 2 wonders in here. So it's almost like it's a double vision in one. Verse 4. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now when we look at this here very clearly in context, that his tail drew a 3rd part of the stars of heaven. And if you look at the first verse, this wonder in heaven is of 12 stars, and it's not referring to the angels. And I want you to focus on, in verse 4, that word cast, because we got to talk about it. And notice as well that this dragon also wants to kill the Messiah. Verse 5. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto Jah and to his throne. Very common people know that this is referring to the Messiah. Daniel 8 verse 9 compliments us. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land, which is Israel. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped up upon them. So what I want to show here is that this 3rd part of casting to the earth is not referring to the devil bringing angels out of heaven, but it's referring to the great tribulation, where he's going to kill, murder 1/3 of the Israelites. It's going to cast them down, like it says in Daniel 8. And it says that they're stars, and he's going to stomp on them. That means he's going to kill them and try to wipe them out. So I hope you can see right off the bat, just from here alone, that this 3rd part of the stars of heaven has nothing to do with the angels. But some may say, well, it can be like something dual that way. But I don't believe that at all. And here's one reason. There's going to be a war in heaven, and the devil is going to fight Michael and his angels. And for him to think, even when we get to read it, that he can challenge Michael and his angels with only 1/3 of the angels, or the devils, so to speak, that wouldn't be wise at all. And the Most High himself, he doesn't deal with large numbers. I truly believe that the devil probably took most of the angels on his side, and that means more than 50%, even a little bit higher, because he likes to deal with numbers, whereas the Most High, he doesn't deliver in multitude, but in his great power. But we can focus on that a little bit more. So again, it says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. So again, I want you to understand that this is Israelites, and they may be non-Israelites who believe in the Messiah, keep the commandments of the Most High, and have joined or have been engrafted into Israel as well. And they become Israel that way. But let's look at this word cast. It means to throw or expel with violence or force, to throw off or away. And the third definition is to reject or dismiss. So when we go back into the context of Satan casting them to the ground, he's not grabbing the angels and he's kicking them out of heaven. No, when those evil angels joined Satan, they just joined him. He didn't have to throw them with violence out of heaven. It says that the stars again were cast to the ground. They were rejected, right? When we look at the definition in the Strong's Concordance as well, G906, cast equals balo. It means to throw or let go of a thing without caring where it falls, to scatter, to throw, cast into, to give over to one's care, uncertain about the result, so on and so forth. But my thing here is that it wasn't Satan that cast out the angels. It was Satan and the angels that were cast out of heaven. That's the point we want to make in this context. Let's look at Isaiah 14, for I think a lot of people might also look at this and feel that this is referring to the angels as well, when I don't believe it is. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. So indeed, the devil wants to exalt himself above the angels, but to believe it or not, this is referring to the Most High's people, Israel again, true believers. That's who he really wants to exalt himself above, because he already has these angels on his side. And yes, he wants to be like the Most High, so he wants to exalt himself that way. But in context, when you look at the definition of this word stars, I do not believe it's referring to angels at all. Verse 14 says, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. So when we look at this word stars, here it's H3556, Kokab, and it just simply means a star, or of Messiah, brothers, youth, numerous progeny, personification, God's omniscience, it says. Here, though, I believe this is here referring to the Israelites. Now, if somebody wanted to say it refers to the angels, well, there's nothing wrong with that. It still doesn't have anything to do with taking 1/3 of the angels out. And hopefully that's been clear already. But let's continue. Verse 6 of Revelation 12. And the woman, Israel, Zion, fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of Jah, that they should feed her 1,260 days, which is for 3.5 years. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. Again, even thinking about one of the parables of the Messiah, he says when you have to count the costs, if a man's going to go to war, he has to think, if he only has 1,000 soldiers, can he really defeat 10,000 soldiers with the 1,000? I don't believe that the devil, even though he is foolish and evil, but I do believe that there was way more angels, and that's why he thought to even challenge, the powers of heaven that way. But we know that they prevailed not, and their place was no more in heaven. They were kicked out. Let's continue. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So you see here again, it's the Most High and his power, his angels, and him himself also casting out the angels, not the devil casting the angels to the ground. And remember, him casting them to the ground also means to kill. Verse 10, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our Elohim, and the power of his Messiah, his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our Elohim day and night. Again, the brethren is the Israelites, the women, right? Those who are seeking righteousness. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. So again, here we're keeping everything in context. This is dealing with human beings. This is who the devil determined to kill on the earth. This also says that these humans, they didn't love their lives unto death. So they were martyrs. And it's the devil that has killed them. He's going to kill 1/3 of the Israelites and true believers, and another 2/3 is going to be taken away into the wilderness, protected by the Most High. Many people know about this tribulation and this 1/3, but again, sometimes they get confused and think it's dealing with the angels. So again, looking at this, his tail drew the third part of heaven, right? Of the stars of heaven. His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. So when we're looking at this situation here, we have the red dragon. And when we look at this situation here, the dragon's tail is his end. It's the end times. So this is not referring, if people say it's angels and this is what he took out. He took out 1/3 of the angels back in Genesis 6. No, it's not referring to angels at all, as I said. But this is referring to his tail end of his rule, the end times. That's what's dealing with the tail. And when you look into prophecy, you start to see things that are very clear. When you understand prophecy, you'll see that there's 7 seals. And these 7 seals represent the end time before the Messiah comes. And when the 7th seal is opened, then we have the 7 trumpets. And within these 7 trumpets, we can see that in the 7th trumpet, Satan is banished to the earth. And when we look at this, this is when he takes a fight or a war against the Israelites and true believers. And he knows that he's got a war against them because he has a short time. So again, when we're looking at this, it's dealing with the 7th seal, the end time, in particular, the 7th trumpet, which is the end of the 7th seal. And it's a short time period, as you can see, and it's the tail end. This is what it's referring to when the Messiah says in Revelation that his tail drew a 3rd part of the stars. He's killing Israelites near the end in the Great Tribulation. Let's continue with the read. Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. And this is that short time that we're talking about again, right? And when the dragon saw that he was cast out unto the earth, he persecuted the woman, which is Israel, Zion, which brought forth the man-child. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the face of the serpent. This is that same 3.5 years near the end time. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. So when it says he cast out, he made orders to violently, take away the woman. And so he sent out orders to human beings to go after the woman, Zion, Israel, to kill her off. But we see in verse 16 here, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. We know this is not a waters, but this flood here of waters represents people, nations, and in particular right now, a military because it represents people watchers at times. And as we end off the verse, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Jah, and have the testimony of Jesus the Christ, Joshua the Messiah, Yahshua HaMashiach. So this is important to see here, that the devil is persecuting the woman, which is Zion, Israel, and he's even in verse 17 going to make war with the remnant of her seed. These are those who he's going to cast down to the earth. So we just read the full chapter of Revelation 12, and we can see that it's very important that this woman here represents Zion and true believers, because she keeps the commandments of the Most High and the testimony of the Messiah. Both the Old and New Testaments are utilized in harmony. So make sure in your walk you're keeping the commandments of the Most High, and don't distort the testimony of the Messiah. Believe the virgin birth. It's not called an immaculate conception, it's a virgin birth of the Father implanting his Son, or sending his Son into Miriam. As well, of course, keeping the commandments. We know the 10, we know the festivals, the dietary laws, all the things that are holy to the Father that declare our faith. Remember, sin is transgression of the law, and faith is dead without works. And so keeping the commandments is only what we're supposed to do, because they define what sin is and what righteousness is. But just keeping them doesn't give us eternal life. We have to make sure that we have the faith and the testimony of the Messiah. Now I want to finish off with one last verse to put this all into play. Daniel 12 verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. This is Michael the archangel. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people, Israel, Zion, shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. This is the lake of fire. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So looking at this, all these verses in Daniel chapter 10, we see that there's a resurrection, and there's two. The resurrection to eternal life, and the resurrection to eternal damnation. And we sleep and we die in the dust. You don't go to a heaven or a hell when you die. You wait for the resurrection. But it also confirms to let us know that we as true believers, even as Israel, we are going to be like the stars of the Most High when we try to teach others about righteousness and faith in the Messiah. And also verse 4, this is one other last thing that I know that many people kind of get confused. It says, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. I know a lot of people think that this is dealing with, planes, trains, and automobiles and ships, and that we're able to travel around the world, at a faster pace than ever before. And so people will say that this is referring to human beings, traveling the world, and knowledge shall increase. Now that might be true in a wicked sense or in a carnal sense, but when it comes to righteousness, this running to and fro is talking about the book in verse 4, which is the book of Daniel. Also, Revelation helps us to understand that. So when you read verse 4 again, in context, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro within the book, and true knowledge shall be increased. This is what it's talking about. So when we go back and forth comparing verses in scriptures, here a little, there a little, line upon line, that's how spiritual true knowledge is increased. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that you got a great understanding from this lesson. Just be sure to know that the stars of heaven are Israelites in Revelation chapter 12. And the devil did not take 1/3 of the angels, probably a lot more. One verse that stands out in my mind is that the Most High says that he has 10%. The tithe is his. So it could be very possible that 10% of the good angels are with the Most High, which is still multiple millions, and that the majority, the 90%, belong to the devil. Something to think about, but be sure that he didn't take 1/3 of the angels out. As always, all praise to Jah, our Father, and his Son, Joshua the Messiah, for giving us life, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of true doctrine, and the opportunity to have eternal life. Holy, holy, holy. Thanks for sticking in. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, click that bell, and I thank you for listening. Peace.